man. This is not good. This is really not good. Okay. I'm gonna have to move this out of the way. Alrighty, let's sort this out. Oh, hey guys, welcome to the channel. I'm Matt Johnson and this is the Deep Planet. In this short video, I'm going to be showing you how we're going to diagnose what I suspect to be a fueling problem. Bike's running a little bit strangely. We're getting power surges. We're getting a really strange waxy smell coming out of the exhaust fumes. And early diagnosis suggests that we've got a fueling problem here. I did lend my bike to a friend of mine who's fueled it up at a different fueling station that I normally use. So I suspect that that's the problem. No hard feelings, that's all good. Sorry Carly, if you're watching this, it's all good. So we're gonna break this down. We're gonna take the tank off, we're gonna drain the fuel, we're gonna check the plugs. I've got some new plugs to change out anyway, so it's a good opportunity to check everything. And we're gonna diagnose this problem. All right, first things first, we're gonna secure the bike. This will keep the bike nice and stable and secure while you're working on it. Right, with the seat off, we need to remove these two screws and these two bolts. These two screws allow us to remove these covers, which are attached to the tank. Then we want to lift the tank up gently, disconnect the power supply to the fuel pump, and we also want to disconnect the fuel hose. I always use a little lid from a spray can or something just to put all my bits and pieces into. That way you've got a dedicated spot for them and you know where they're going. Little tip for you guys there. To remove these covers, you just want to very carefully and gently pop them out of the little rubber grommet that holds it in place. Just being gentle here, because if you force it, you could snap the plastic. And it's always a good idea to put a bit of universal grease into these grommets, just to make them more easily removable. And we're going to repeat the same process on the other side. All good. Set those aside. Next we're going to remove these Alright, for this one you're going to want a little flathead screwdriver. Now this is a lift up tab, so just pop that little catch off there and disconnect the fuel pump. Next thing we want to do is disconnect this fuel hose. So what you want to do is get your flathead screwdriver and get in underneath this red tab. Now there's going to be a little bit of fuel that's going to spill out when you do this. So a good idea to put a rag underneath this. You don't want fuel in these electrics, and this relay box is quite important. So just grab a handy rag, pop that under there so that we can catch that fuel that spills. Gently remove this red catch and ease that fuel hose off the fuel pump. There you go. So there's that fuel that spills out. Okay, now that we've disconnected the power supply and the fuel hose, we've just got one more thing to disconnect, which is this hose, which is an overflow hose. Now it might have a little clasp on it. Give that a squeeze and just pull that off. Then we're going to move that tank outside. It is going to spill a little fuel, so just be mindful of where that's going. And we're going to set it down somewhere where that fuel pump's not going to be resting on the ground, because it's got a plastic connector that can be damaged really easily, and the fuel pump's really quite expensive to replace. So we're going to put the tank down gently outside, and we're just going to place it on a crate or a piece of timber. But what we want to do is have somewhere where if we do get a bit of fuel spilling, it's going to go somewhere safe. But we want to make sure that that bulk of that fuel that we drain out of the tank is put in a fuel safe container. So making sure that's stable. I've got a nice big fuel tank here. We're going to put our dirty fuel into that, And then we're going to go over to the petrol station and get some nice clean fuel to put in that tank. Next thing though, what we're going to do is we're going to pull out the air filter, air box, check those. We're also going to pull out the spark plugs and make sure that they're still fine. I've got some fresh ones to put in there while we're in there, so we're going to do that too. So I'll just point this out to you. It's really important that you understand this, guys. This little bit here is actually made of plastic, so you need to be really careful. If you were to put that down on the ground, it might be okay, but if you were not careful, there's a really strong possibility that that little plastic arm could break, and without that, the fuel pump's essentially useless, and it's a really expensive component to replace. So when we're setting this down, just making sure that we're not damaging that part of the fuel pump. A milk crate works great, but a piece of timber or a wooden box or something like that, just where you can store it safely, is your best option. All right, so next thing we're going to do is remove the air box. In order to do that, we need to disconnect this hose. We need to undo these screws, and we need to remove the hex bolts that are inside there. So a bit of work there. Right, so remove that little cover, and inside here are 4 hex bolts that we'll need to remove in order to be able to remove that air box. We're also going to remove the sensor connector here, so pushing down on that clip and gently removing that, and that should be able to come out really easily now. While we're in this neck of the woods though, we're going to pull out the air filter and check that too. It may need a clean. It's not looking too bad, but while we've got everything off, we'll run some cleaner through that too. So do that later. Next step, undoing these 4 hex bolts. We need to remove the hex bolts, 4 of them that hold the airbox down onto the throttle bodies. When you're loosening these, you don't have to be too careful, but when you put in the airbox back, if you drop one of these hex bolts, unless you've got some kind of retrieval tool, a little magnet on the end of a stick or something like that, it's a real pain, because it usually happens when you get to the last one, then you gotta undo everything, pull the airbox out again. So just be mindful of that when you're reassembling, to get that little hex bolt in there first by hand. The airbox should just come out, wiggle. That's good, set that aside. Next thing we'll want to do is remove the ignition coils. Before we do that, you want to disconnect the connector, the power connector to the ignition coil, and make sure that your numbering is correct. So remember, 1's on the left as you're sitting on the bike, and 2's on the right as you're sitting on the bike. So we can then remove the ignition coils. 1. Probably spray a bit of WD-40 or silicone down there. It looks like we've got a bit of moisture in there. Well, that might be the cause of our problem. That's interesting. That could very well be our problem. Wet ignition coil. Right, next step, removal of the spark plugs. For that, you'll need the special tool that would be included in your toolkit that you got with the bike. I've got my own little wrap that I've made up. Just makes it easier to get to everything. In we go. Next step, socket removal. You've got a 14mm nut on the end of this spark plug removal tool. Just crack it loose. Right, so both plugs are in very similar condition in the way that they're actually burning. So pretty happy with that. Obviously this first plug's got a little bit of water coming in, but in terms of the color and them both being the same, really happy with that. So we are going to replace these plugs, but no indication that there's an issue with the way that the bike's been burning, and they're both the same, which is what we want to see. Great, so we've got a nice fresh pair of iridium plugs to go in. I've got a little bit of anti-seize lubricant, which I always will put on the thread of the spark plug. Don't overdo it, but that's just going to help if that plug is in there for an extended period of time. And these iridium plugs do last a very long time. That's going to make it a lot easier to get out. You know, if that plug snaps off, it is a real challenge to get that back out again. So easiest way to get this plug installed and to make sure that you've got it lined up, just ease it in there, and then just very gently by hand thread that in. Make sure it's not cross-threaded. You should be able to feel that. Get it in there hand tight, and repeat on the other side. You don't want too much, you don't want to foul your plug with this stuff. Just a little bit of that on there. Would recommend using gloves actually. I'll go wash it off my hands in a second. So we'll get that hand tight, then we'll tighten it up with the socket, and then we'll get the torque wrench and torque that up to spec. That way there's no doubt in our mind that that spark plug is in there correctly. Again, just get it to the point where we engage that crush washer that's on the spark plug. Scrap that, no extension required, and we're going to check the workshop manual. Alright guys, a lot of mechanics will say that you can just do this on feel, and while that may be true, I personally prefer to use the torque spec setting as indicated in your workshop manual. If you're doing the 2008, 2006 to 2008 Kawasaki Versys or EL6N or EL6F, as we are here, I've got the workshop manual handy, and I'm going to tighten the spark plug to specification. Just make sure you double check that and that you're actually checking it against the correct torque spec setting for your specific motorcycle. So 15 Newton meters. Lock that in place, check that we're going the right way. There we go. Always remember, when you're finished with your torque wrench, unlock it and back it off past zero. That way it's not going to sit under tension, and your torque wrench will last and be accurate for a lot longer. So just in the interest of preservation, we're going to spray a bit of silicone lubricant on the coil packs. Drop that in there. That should click into place nicely. Yep. Make sure that your connector is firmly in place. Number 2. Click into place. All right. Ignition coil packs are in place. Next, I'm going to we've got a little bit of dirt on the inside of this air filter space. I'm just going to dust that off. You really don't want. And while I'm here, just going to have a look at my throttle bodies. So while we've got the air filter and the throttle bodies open, you're going to have a look down and actually open the throttle. So this is your butterfly that's controlled by the throttle body controller. You get that vertical, so you can look down into there, and then open your throttle fully, and you can actually see right down into the back of your valves. And what you want to see is no buildup of carbon down there. And it's a really great opportunity to make sure that your fuel is burning cleanly and that you're not having any kind of carbon deposits or buildup around your valves. So from what I can see here, everything looks really nice and clean. So really happy with that. Just, yeah, really one of those things that you probably don't think to do if you haven't done it before. So our diagnosis so far is looking really good, guys. Very happy with what we're seeing. We've got clean throttle bodies, clean valves, no oil buildup. Everything's looking normal. While we got everything off, it is a good opportunity to just get a nice powerful torch and have a look around and just see if there's any oil leakage happening or anything that looks out of place or any burnt wires. But overall, I'm really happy with how everything looks in here. So next step is to put the air filter back on. I pretty much left the wires as they were, but sometimes you might need to move these wires out of the way like this. I'll do that to show you actually. If you move the wires out of the way like this, it does make it a little bit easier to get your air box back in. Remembering as well that you want this hose to connect down to the top of the, I think it's called the crank. The front goes in first. Push that rubber connector over the back, line everything up, making sure that that breather hose is connected up. Best place to go is in from the left. Got a bit of room there. Get your hand onto it and guide it down onto that hole. Right, then we're going to pack these wires back in neatly. So next step, everything in reverse. This is kind of the tricky bit. These hex bolts, you want to make sure that you get them in and hang on to them until you've actually got them placed into that hole, and make sure you don't cross thread them. No need to fully over tighten these, just a nice little nip. Hold that airbox in place. Then we're going to go back on with the cover. Flip that into place. Got our 4 screws. Now this is, we're screwing metal into plastic here, so it's always just be mindful not to over tighten and strip the thread. Just nice and firm, but not overly tight. Great. Don't forget to reconnect your, I believe this is an O2 sensor. Make sure that's on there. Make sure that is connected. Tuck everything in. Nice and neat, otherwise it won't go back into place. Tucking these wires back in. That needs to go under there, otherwise your tank won't seat properly. Then we're going to connect up the fuel hose. Once I've drained the tank, reconnect the power supply for your fuel pump and reconnect your overflow hose to your fuel tank. Alright, next step is to siphon the fuel out of fuel tank. Alright guys, fuel tank has been drained of what we suspect is contaminated fuel. Next we're going to return fuel tank to its rightful place. Little piece of timber handy there just to prop that up so we don't damage anything. So we want to connect power supply for the fuel pump, reconnect the fuel hose, slide that on all the way till it clips into place, and then re-engage the red clip and make sure that our breather hose or overfill hose has been reconnected. It's this one here. Just slides back on. And making sure when you return the tank that you're not crushing or damaging any of the hoses or cables, electrical, or the fuel hose. Line that up. Remove your piece of timber. Lastly, you want to line this bracket up with these bolts. Tighten these down. Remember that's the bracket that holds your seat in place. So pretty important that's correctly installed. If your tank doesn't go back into place properly, you may have bunched up your cabling up the front. So just gently slide everything back and make sure that you're not pinching any of the electrical cables. Get that firm, but not over tight. Then we're going to return the plastics and the seat. Go get some fresh fuel and hopefully we're ready to roll again. Right, I've just been to my favorite servo and got some clean fuel. Fingers crossed we've solved this problem